Okay, I will try and be brief. So, buenas noches, boa noite, good evening. My name is Jason Pielemeier. I have the privilege of being the director of the Global Network Initiative. We are co-sponsoring this plenary together with our dear friends at CELE. And I just have a few concluding remarks. I want to, first of all, just start by saying thank you to the University of Palermo, to the business school for hosting us, to the law school for helping to put on this event, and of course to Agustina. A round of applause for Agustina. And I can say this as an executive director, more importantly, to the amazing team that she has the pleasure of leading at CELE, who did so much work to pull all of this together. And so now I have to also thank my team, which has also put in an incredible amount of work, not just to this event, but the members meeting and the board meeting that we had this week. So thank you very much to GNI staff, to Vicky, to Osama. Okay, so just a few concluding remarks to try and synthesize at least what I took away from this really incredible opening plenary, and a question that I want to plant and leave with you for the next couple of days and maybe beyond. So first, the panels. Honestly, I have to take my hat off, in particular to Hillary on our team, for pulling together just really incredible conversation, and it fills me with particular pride to be able to show off to those of you who are not part of GNI, all of the amazing GNI members who spoke on these panels. That's just a taste of the expertise and diversity of views that exists within GNI's membership, and it's such a pleasure and a privilege to be able to engage on a day-by-day basis with such amazing people. And you guys are an amazing audience. I mean, I can't remember the last public event that I went to where there were so few phones out. I mean, you guys are like actually looking at me and making eye contact, and you were doing that throughout. I was monitoring you. And it's just, I think, a sign of both your commitment and engagement to these topics, but also the amazing conversation that was happening here. Agustina began the plenary by mentioning the gustito, I don't know how that was translated, pride or pleasure of having this event in Latin America and being able to center the perspectives of this amazing, diverse region. But also noting that this year in particular, there's a much more global vibe, right, and more diverse perspectives. And as promised, the first panel, we heard from Agustina about the particular role that judiciaries have played in unpacking and adjudicating questions of content regulation, relying primarily on the framework of freedom of expression and how unique that is. We heard from Rafa about the fascinating story about how the Brazilian judiciary is evolving its approach to these questions of balancing freedom of expression and other rights. We heard on the second panel from Christian about the various ways, and through Christian from Al Sur and all the amazing Al Sur members who are documenting the use of AI and the misuses of AI across the region. But then we also heard from Usama, Mishi, and others in the audience about the contrast with South Asia and what's happening there, where governments have become increasingly aggressive in their approaches to content regulation, including via criminal penalties and the subtle and sometimes not so subtle role of the military, as well as the amazing changes that are happening in that region, despite or maybe because of that government sort of over heavy-handed approach and the mass movements that have emerged pushing back against government overreach, including government overreach specifically about controlling content and controlling technology in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka. And I think that was just a really interesting contrast. We heard from Marlena about the EU's regulation-focused approach to AI and both the promises and the potential perils and inconsistency that it holds at the same time. And of course, although it actually didn't come up quite as explicitly as I thought it might. We definitely heard echoes, at least, about the giant elephant in the room, which is the US government, and the current iteration of which is proving profoundly disruptive to a lot of things, but in particular to issues of human rights and tech. A lot really packed into just a couple hours, and I know we're going to explore a lot of this even more in the next 2 days. And so I just want to leave one question for all of you, and I think you are already asking this question, and many of you have dedicated your careers, honestly, to this question. I think it's a question that obviously GNI is focused on trying to help answer, which is, to what extent do human rights matter? In some places, including the US, where I live, it can feel increasingly like human rights do not matter. But at the same time, the Trump administration is focusing very explicitly on freedom of speech, at least in their foreign policy. And at least that's one piece of evidence that I think illustrates the enduring power that these concepts still have. They're not arguing against freedom of expression. They're trying to reframe freedom of expression. And, I might feel like that is a misuse, but at least we should pay attention to the fact that they are using the terminology, right? And if you look at lower court cases, at least in the US, issues of due process, privacy, and of course, freedom of speech are being used to limit assertions of executive power, underscoring the vitality that these rights still retain, at least for now. And this is clear in the story that Rafa told about what's happening in Brazil, and the Brazilian Supreme Court is clearly struggling with kind of reframing and trying to understand the issue of content regulation and human rights and the balance between freedom of expression and protecting democracy. Perhaps most saliently, human rights still clearly matter to the young people in Nepal, in Bangladesh, whether they frame their grievance and their protests in human rights terms. They are pushing back against governments who are violating their rights and demanding better. And that is inspiring. And finally, hopefully, human rights still matter to tech companies. We heard from Logan and Alex and Miranda that it does, which I really appreciate. And while I think we can all understand how the geopolitical environment is becoming more complex and making things challenging for everyone, including tech companies, I think it also underscores just how important this moment is for companies to not only continue using human rights in their internal approaches, but privately and publicly emphasizing the importance of human rights when engaging with governments. It's not always going to be the right thing to lead with, but it is critical that you continue to emphasize the importance of human rights. I can tell you that human rights still matter to GNI. Over the last 18 years, we have been working across an ever-growing and increasingly globally diverse membership to underscore not only that human rights matter, but to try and unpack and articulate how and why they matter. The AI policy brief that you got a little taste of today that we launched is our latest sort of iteration of that. And I hope you take a look at it. A lot of incredible work went into it. I think it's a really rich and useful product. And GNI will continue insisting that human rights matter and asking others, governments, companies, civil society, academics, and investors to commit to them and to work together to see them through into realization. So with that, I guess it's my pleasure to invite you to the reception that is graciously sponsored by Google. I think on the fourth floor. So I think there are stairs. If we all try and get on the elevator at the same time, it's not going to work.
There are stairs, there are 2 elevators, and there are stairs, and it's on the terrace, so it's beautiful, and it's not raining.
So thank you.